by giving a background of his alleged involvement in the property and security business now considered part of Cape Town's underworld. Deputy Minister in the Presidency, Nongceba Mhlauli, says the Presidential Youth Employment Initiative has created over 1 million earning opportunities for young people since its inception. The initiative aims to transition young people from learning to earning through structured programs while addressing the country's youth unemployment challenge. It was launched by President Cyril Ramaphosa in 2020. Mhlauli briefed the media in Mfuleni, Cape Town today on the initiative's third quarter report and progress made.
Our Youth Employment Service, which is the YES program, placed over 10,000 youth in various work opportunities across the different sectors. And the National Youth Development Agency and the Department of Small Business Development supported over 14,000 young entrepreneurs with financial and non-financial enterprise opportunities.
Firefighters have completely contained a wildfire that was burning the Hectorskraal and Rassersbaan vicinity in the Garden Route region of the Western Cape. Authorities say the northwestern flank was contained last night, while the eastern flank was contained earlier today with no visible flames or smoke. Crews with patrol and mop-up throughout the day as a precaution. Meanwhile, the South African Weather Service has issued extreme heat warnings for the Western Cape today, where hot and windy conditions could lead to runway wildfires. These areas include Garden Route and Little Larue, as well as the Cape Winelands and West Coast. Police in Panama have blocked dozens of migrants, mostly from Venezuela, who are trying to return home. A group tried to turn back after hearing about the Trump administration's latest deportation rules. The BBC's Leonardo Rocha reports.
Like other migrants from Central and South America, the group was traveling together for protection and support. They were hoping to arrive at the Mexican border with the United States, but they gave up and turned back, having got only as far as Costa Rica when they became aware of President Trump's tough anti-immigration policies. As they tried to re-enter Panama on their way home, they were rounded up and handed back to the authorities in Costa Rica.
Recapping the top story, the Gauteng Health Department has admitted to the crisis facing some of the province's hospitals. It says Helen Joseph Hospital lacks intensive care unit beds. I am Mondela Mbana for SFM News headlines at 1:30.
The Northwest Legislature Portfolio Committee on Community Safety and Transport Management, chaired by Honorable Freddy Sonakile, will host public hearings on Marine Oil Pollution Bill on the 14th February 2025 at Groot Mariko Community Hall in Ngakamudiri Molema District, Mogopa Community Hall near Ventersdorp in Dr. Kenneth Kaunda District, Utlanang Community Hall at Christiana in Dr. Ruth Somuti Mompati, and Sutelong Community Hall in Bojanala District. All public hearings start at 10.
The whispers in the morning as I look in your...
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'Cause I'm your lady, and you are my man.
The year has kicked off, and if you, like most people, you've spent more time researching resolutions than actually starting. Gym, meal prep, meditation, still deciding? Well, luckily, getting your car covered online with Santam is faster than picking a resolution to stick with. It only takes 2 minutes. To switch, all you have to do is visit santam.co.za. Santam, this is freedom.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
You've got a fast car, I wanted to get anywhere. Maybe we can make a deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I've got nothing to prove. You've got a fast car, I've got a plan to get us out of here. I've been working at the convenience store. Managed to save just a little bit of money, won't have to drive too far. Just across the border and into the city, you and I can both get jobs. Finally see what it means to be living. See, my old man's got a problem. He lives with the bottle, that's the way it is. Says his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like his. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. Said somebody's gotta take care of him. So I quit school, that's what I did. You've got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Live tonight or live and die this way. So I remember when we were driving in your car. The speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arms felt nice wrapped around my shoulders. And I had a feeling that I belonged, and I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone. You've got a fast car, I've got a job that pays all our bills. You stay out drinking late at the bar. See more your friends than you do your kids. I'd always hoped for better, that maybe together you and me would find it. I've got no plans and go nowhere, to take your fast car and keep on driving. So remember when we were driving in your car. The speed so fast, felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arms felt nice wrapped around my shoulders. And I had a feeling that I belonged, and I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone. You've got a fast car. Is it fast enough so you can fly away? You've got to make a decision. Live tonight or live and die this way.
Wonderful way to begin the song. I'm yet to hear a rendition of this song that does not tug at your heartstrings. And this time around, this is Jasmine Thompson, of course, performing the much beloved Tracy Chapman track Fast Car. And Jasmine Thompson actually sort of positioned herself in the music industry by filming herself singing and then uploading those videos to YouTube. And then in 2014, she was then featured in, by a German deep house producer in Sun Goes Down, and her career has since taken off. This song is iconic. It is a Tracy Chapman standard. It's the staple. It is how we love to know Tracy Chapman, right? And it comes from her debut. It was a debut single that was released back in 1988, and it's a wonderful, wonderful track from the self-titled debut studio album Tracy Chapman, and she performed at the Grammys in 2024 to a resounding applause alongside Luke Combs, who also did a rendition of one of her songs, joining her on stage to do a rendition. And after that performance, she was then discovered by a whole new younger audience. Remember waking up to social media buzz and entertainment magazines and entertainment blogs, all talking about how the younger generation had discovered Tracy Chapman, and I think in a matter of 24 hours hitting something like 500 million downloads of her album, because they just had no idea who she was. And that is the power of music. That's how we kick off the show today. I hope you're having a good afternoon thus far. And if it's not too good, well, there's still an opportunity for you to change that, right? We've got lots on the show today. We are touching base with the Department of Basic Education as we observe Teen Suicide Prevention Week. And then we are also going to be talking around a campaign, a hashtag Scan the Scar campaign, which is amplifying the voices of South Africa's young mothers. And then on the other side of 2 o'clock, because it is Thursday, we're having a relationship conversation that is, today's Wednesday actually, a relationship conversation that's centered around finances. And we're looking at joint finances versus separate accounts and what works best for you. We'll have that conversation with a debt counselor on the other side of 2. I'll tell you what else is coming up on the show closer to the time. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's take a quick pause.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right. So the question, by the way, on the table for our next conversation for you, because I'd love to know, I did say that we're going to be talking to the Department of Basic Education around Teen Suicide Prevention Week. And I'd like to know from you today, do you think that the department is doing enough by way of putting together social support initiatives and systems for children, particularly in vulnerable communities? Should the Department of Education be doing more to offer social services to children in vulnerable communities, whether it's way of having, social workers on campus, whether it's way of offering psychological services and support centers for children at vulnerable community campuses, especially if you know that a community is plagued with criminality, with violence, with abuse, physical and alcohol and sexual. You would assume that those children require a little bit more support than perhaps other children in other environments. And so you'd put in the systems just to ensure that at least when they're in school, they have places to go and people to talk to in order for them to really just ventilate and process their emotions. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. In the meantime, you can send us a WhatsApp on 061 410 4107. Do you think that the department should really just roll up their sleeves and put more social support systems in place in vulnerable community schools for children to be able to lean on and tap on? 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. Looking forward to hearing what's on your mind regarding that. Right now, though, we're unveiling the scars and how the hashtag Scan the Scar campaign amplifies the voices of South Africa's young mothers. So the hashtag Scan the Scar campaign by Amnesty International South Africa and Joe Public highlights the crises of child and teenage pregnancies in South Africa. We have over 105,000 girls aged between 10 and 19 years old that gave birth in 2022. And that is something that should really alarm us for many reasons. And we've engaged this conversation from various angles with various stakeholders. And today we thought we'd chat to Cassandra, who's with Amnesty International South Africa. How are you doing this afternoon, Cassandra?
I'm very well, Bridget. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the campaign.
Thank you so much for the time. I mean, let's talk about, the sort of the vested interest for Amnesty International South Africa, and of course, the various stakeholders in this conversation, because it is really a very important conversation in the context of South Africa, and I think by extension even in the context of the continent.
Precisely. So, like you set out with the numbers, there's over 100,000 girls who are giving birth. And if we break it down into age brackets, there's 2,311 girls who had given birth in 2023 between the ages of 10 and 14. And over 100,095 to be precise girls aged between 15 and 19 who gave birth. And this is just the births themselves. They don't factor in termination of pregnancy. They don't factor situations where girls might have lost the pregnancy at an early stage. So there's an undercurrent and a much larger problem, but we are only dealing with the after fact, that 100,000 that we see, and even that is so huge that it should urge a response from all stakeholders, and that's why we as Amnesty got involved together with Joe Public and other partners like Children of Success and Women and Men Against Child Abuse. There are many driving factors of child and teenage pregnancy, like the socioeconomic factors that child grows up in, lack of sexual and reproductive health care, and of course gender-based violence against women and children. And all of these factors require a response that is multifaceted and that involves a whole range of stakeholders. And that's why we've decided to play our part as well. And we've been working on this since 2021. And with this new iteration of the campaign, we have used a more grounded approach, telling the stories of the girls who are affected, so that we can understand and empathize from their perspective what they've been through. But I said a mouthful, so I'll pause there.
No problem at all. Because, and I want to pick up on the fact that, a crisis like this, as you've highlighted as well and alluded to, it doesn't sit in isolation. It really is a reflection and almost a response to everything that we are dealing with, within the social and political context of the country. And really it speaks to a lot of the challenges that South Africa must address or redress in order to be able to turn the tide on some of our more social and personal I guess symptoms, to the problems that we face.
Definitely. Like I said, and like you have said, there's a range of factors that are driving these high incidences of child and teenage pregnancy. One of the most prevalent is, socioeconomic factors. And I say prevalent because of how widespread and pervasive the problem of poverty is in South Africa. So in order to deal with child and teenage pregnancy, we have to go to those root causes. The other is, lack of information on sexual and reproductive health. And there was a study that was done a couple years back that showed that of the number of girls that were surveyed who had fallen pregnant, a number of them didn't know the consequences of having sex. They didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and they had no ability to foresee that pregnancy was one of the consequences. So there's definitely a need for more information to be out there for children, especially children who are, aging appropriately and, are interested in their bodies and interested in learning more about sex and sexual relationships. They need to be equipped with the right sorts of knowledge to make informed decisions about their body and informed decisions about how others treat their body. And that speaks to the issue of gender-based violence. There is, as we know, a huge rate of rape and gender-based violence in South Africa. And a 2016 study showed that 1 in 3 children reported being sexually abused. And when we have those incidences of GBV, we know that sometimes the justice system is not quick to respond to it, or families and communities are not quick to report it because there are social norms that go along with, protecting the family name or not wanting to, the primary breadwinner, which is one of the stories that we told with the Scan the Scar campaign of one girl whose father had abused her, had raped her. And one of the fears was that if this father goes to jail, then what happens to the rest of the family? Who's going to be the breadwinner? Who's going to provide? So in telling these stories, and we saw 3 stories with children of success and women and men against child abuse. And we worked with these incredible poets, Lebo Mashile, Koleka Putuma, and Tendi Mzula, and they gave life to their stories, and they told it in a very in a way that will really move listeners and really help them empathize with the individuals behind those numbers, and that was the aim and what we were going for.
Mm-hmm. And I want to touch, Cassandra, on the campaign itself, hashtag Scan the Scar campaign. Unpack for us, is this a campaign set to mobilize and change societal mindsets as a whole, and perhaps foster more empathy, understanding, and caring for vulnerable girls? Or is it also, a campaign that's set out to ensure a conscientizing and a change behavior somewhat to the girls, specifically within the age range that could find themselves in these precarious and vulnerable situations?
It's both, and I think primarily it's a call to action to government. So firstly, it requires all of us to understand the issue, to be invested in seeing a change in those numbers, to be invested in changing the systems that are producing these high rates of child and teenage pregnancy. But essentially it comes back to government. And in telling the stories, we hope to mobilize people to take action, to have government move very decisively when it comes to child and teenage pregnancy, and to, for example, enhance access to sexual and reproductive health care knowledge and services, to deal with the backlog when it comes to investigating and prosecuting gender-based violence and femicide, and to ensure that all healthcare facilities are equipped with the necessary expertise to give age-appropriate counseling to children when it comes to their sexual and reproductive health rights. So there is that element of us, and the campaign, the Scan the Scar, the poetry that goes with it is about mobilizing and people empathizing and getting there. But the end goal is to see people move to action, to actually sign the petition that we have ongoing at the moment to the president, to make sure that all elements of government are working towards addressing this crisis.
How does it work? Because obviously, as you say, it is a call to action, hashtag Scan the Scar. Tell us the sort of mechanics behind our involvement in the campaign.
There's 2 ways to go about it. First, you can go to amnesty.org.za, and under Act Now, you'll find a tab that shows the research on child and teenage pregnancy, but also a link to the Spotify playlist where you can listen to the poems, as well as the link to petition to the president. You can also search on Spotify, SCARD, and the playlist will come up where you can listen to the poems. Okay.
I mean, a very important initiative like this, and I think for such a widespread societal issue, it takes everybody. I think everybody is a stakeholder in this conversation, including those listening to us right now.
Definitely, it requires all of us to get involved, and I'd urge everyone listening to please go and listen to the stories, go and understand the issue, and ultimately take action in the best way that you can in your context, but also directly by signing the petition to the president.
One of the conversations that we're having today, and I sort of want to tie it into this, is a conversation around Teen Suicide Prevention Week, which is being observed this week, and we're going to be touching base with the Department of Basic Education after this. Again, these are things that cannot live separate to each other. When we talk just sort of the pressures rather that are levied and on the shoulders of young people, and that they're burdened with, and some of these choices around their sexual health, around teen pregnancy, also speak to that, and ultimately could lead to the staggering numbers that we also see by way of teen suicide.
and vice versa. So, of course, there's the pressure beforehand and the pressure afterwards when girls who fall pregnant are bullied at schools or don't get the right support from their parents and their families. That adds to that element of mental health pressure. And when there's no support services, and the issue is widespread across South Africa, where there isn't enough support for people who are going through mental health crises. And it's the same with girls who fall pregnant. And from the onset, there needs to be that foundation of support for people who are in need of it. So there was a recent study that was published showing the link between suicide and girls who have fallen pregnant. And it's something that we do need to address as well. And I'd be interested to hear what the Department of Basic Education says about it and the link, and it's specifically addressing that mental health support for girls who have fallen pregnant in their policy that they currently have for schools.
A very important initiative here, Cassandra, and we appreciate the time with you this afternoon. That was Cassandra Dorasamy, who is with Amnesty International South Africa, walking us through hashtag Scan the Sky. And this is a campaign powered by Amnesty International South Africa, and of course, roping in Joe Public to come through with the creative elements of this, and involving the likes of poet Lebu Mashile, Koleka Putuma, and Temba Mvula. A very, very important conversation. And of course, you can always go to Amnesty International to see the ways that you can get involved in this and get behind it, whether by way of signing that petition, applying more pressure to policy makers and urging for changes in policy, better education and healthcare access, whilst also just challenging societal stigma. And of course, it always helps when you can hear for yourself the first-hand experience of people that are going through the darkness at the moment. It just fosters a sense of empathy and understanding for other people's life journey. If you're far removed at times from a situation, it becomes difficult for you to connect, because if in your spaces, in your environment, you've never had to deal with it, and I think these pieces and these stories that have been shared will just bring you closer into understanding exactly what these young girls in South Africa are going through, especially those who really are in vulnerable situations. We're going to take a quick one for the headline news, and then we come back and we catch up with the department. And I want to hear from you if you care to share your thoughts. Perhaps we're going to talk about teen suicide and the teen suicide rates, because it is Teen Suicide Prevention Week with the Department of Education, and we'll find out what systems they are putting in place as a department, as one of the big stakeholders in this demographic to ensure support and resources for children that could be burdened with so much. And do you think that the Department of Education should be doing more to offer social services to children, particularly in vulnerable communities? Should they be doing more by way of social workers, by way of psychologists at school campuses, by way of healthcare providers at schools, particularly in vulnerable communities, in communities that are dealing with all the issues that we often talk about, communities that are plagued with crime, violence, abuse, physical and substance, and all these things that children really should not be carrying on their shoulders. That conversation is coming up. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. And Musa is coming through with the headline news.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines on SFM, I'm Ondilambana, and a very good day. The Standing Committee on Public Accounts has expressed serious concerns over Eskom's skyrocketing electricity tariffs, with growing fears that the average South African can no longer afford the hikes. The Gauteng Health Department has admitted to the crisis facing some of the province's hospitals. It says Helen Joseph Hospital lacks intensive care unit beds, and there's growing concern that fighting in Gaza could resume after the Israeli Security Cabinet took up U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for all the remaining hostages to be returned by midday on Saturday. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
All right, we are catching up with Usmongile Monareng now, Director of psychosocial support in the Department of Basic Education. And this week, we're observing Teen Suicide Prevention Week to raise awareness about measures that can be put in place to prevent suicides, particularly amongst teenagers. There's some alarming statistics here because suicides remain a global public health challenge, and in South Africa, it's no exception, with the National Department of Health data indicating that approximately 7,400 plus children under the age of 18 were treated for suicide attempts from April 2024 to December 2024. And this is cause for us to pause and perhaps to reassess as a collective in society and try and figure out what is going wrong and how, we can intervene. How are you doing this afternoon, Sbongile?
We're very well, Bridget, and good afternoon to you and the listeners.
Thank you for the time. For some folks, it might seem like an inconsequential number, but I always say that one life is one life too many. And when we're talking over 7,400 lives under the age of 18, it really should cause every stakeholder, including myself and my listener, to pause and just reassess the state of being in South Africa and how that speaks to and affects young children.
Indeed, Bridget, and just to add context, these are numbers of young people that ended up at a health facility. You may find that there are others that are not reported, and also these are the attempts. These are not numbers of those that ended up dying by suicide. And what we are finding now is that we are finding 10-year-olds dying by suicide, and so it's becoming really, really concerning.
Yeah, and alarming because, at 10 years old, you should be preoccupied with, the socialness of your life, with cartoons, with things that speak to the frivolity and the carefreeness of being a child. And so let's talk about the factors that are at play with South African children, that at 10 years old, you are so emotionally and psychologically burdened that the only way out for you is to consider death by suicide.
Thank you so much, Bridget. Indeed. So a lot of our children in South Africa, unfortunately, are still very vulnerable and are still living below the poverty line. But just to name the drivers, what our children experience what we call adverse childhood experiences. Now, these include mental illnesses themselves, sexual abuse. It includes being emotionally and physically abandoned, but it also includes being part of a broken family. It includes when there are fights in the family, when there's discord in the family, where there is substance abuse in the family, and children are not taken care of as they should be taken care of. In the case of the 10-year-old that I was talking about, the reason that he gave to his friends, he did say goodbye somehow, but there's always we should have listened when he said that his parents are fighting, and so he's tired, he doesn't want to live anymore. But of course there's bullying as well, particularly cyberbullying, where young people bully each other. There's also being bullied for being different. And data tells us that pregnancy as well. Some young people, when they do fall pregnant and perhaps they don't get the support that they need, do feel hopeless and end up attempting or taking their own lives.
And considering that, I think we are as society conscientized now to the social issues, right? The socio-economic factors that come to play in our communities. Surely we should be championing the protection of children with more aggression at this point.
I think the biggest challenge is that we still have stigma around mental illnesses. What we're finding is that a lot of people have very limited understanding of your basic common mental health conditions like anxiety and depression, and how even those can lead to hopelessness and a decision to take one's life. It's very easy for people to say, oh no, we are all stressed, we all go through anxiety. And so we are finding that in South Africa, there's very limited proactive health-seeking behavior when it comes to mental health conditions. And so part of what we are trying to do with this week is to raise awareness around mental health in general, and that since we're able to take care of our physical health, it's important for us to also put in place systems for taking care of our mental wellness. But also, we want to encourage families to have homes be safe spaces for our children. Even as a sector, that's what we're trying to do with educators in our classrooms and our schools, and it's going to be a process, but we're saying that can homes also be spaces where young people can feel free to share when they're being bullied, to also just be protected by the parents and family members themselves.
And I hear that, Spongile, and I do take that in, but then I wonder, because the expectation can't be that a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, a 13-year-old is aware that they're going through something far deeper psychologically. They don't have the languaging, they don't have the mental capacity to grasp that. And so they then don't even have the ability to access health care or interventions for that. And surely as a department, alongside other community stakeholders, NGOs, other departments that should be working in tandem, the health department, safety and security, they should be at this point someone who is, for the betterment of our children, championing a more holistic approach to interventions within community. Because a child is only broken and reflects that brokenness because their family and their community is broken.
True. So Bridget, one of the things we're trying to do is to actually just highlight what are some of the signs that community members or adults or even peers should look out for, right? So, for instance, when someone expresses hopelessness, and in most cases, before people take their own lives, they would have expressed to somebody that I am tired of being alive. I do want to die. And in some instances, we take those for granted, or we think, no, this person is not going to do it. But also, when somebody starts to isolate themselves, maybe this child was a bubbly child who likes to interact and likes to play, and suddenly they're withdrawing themselves. It's important then for adults to have conversations with that child and figure out what is going on. A change in appearance. In adolescence, it can present as engaging in risky behavior, including substance use, because we know that often young people use substances to numb mental health challenges. So what we're saying is that adults around children, as part of child protection, need to pay attention to how children behave and how they are, so that you can actually start the conversation and find out, are you okay? What's going on in school? What's going on with your friends? Because you're correct. Young people don't know. They're still finding themselves. They don't have the languaging around mental health.
Absolutely.
And they may not even name and say this is depression, this is anxiety. They might just be sad. But it's important then to just engage further and find out what is happening.
Yeah. Brian in Project Land says, for suicidal teenagers, the government must visit their homes and talk to the families, because the problems start at home first and not at school, because of the foundation of our families are so different. Poverty, absent fathers, neglect, etc. And that leads to the question that I threw out to our listeners to say, well, it's all good and well for us to have these awareness conversations with the department and other stakeholders, but is the department trying to do more, the Department of Basic Education, because you are the primary custodian of this demographic? Should, alongside obviously family and community, not negating their responsibility, but should the department be doing more to offer social services, particularly for children in vulnerable communities, in communities where you are aware that, you know, kids are dealing with more. You know, they're dealing with gangsterism, they're dealing with high rape issues, they're dealing with high teenage pregnancy, they're dealing with high employment, they're dealing with high substance abuse. So shouldn't there be a concentrated effort to ensure that the department, at very least within your campuses, there is that saturation of support for children so they can lean on y'all if they don't have the ability to lean on anyone else in their community or even in their homes?
No, you are correct, Bridget. There should be, and we are working very hard. We have different structures that providing support to schools. For instance, we have a structure called the QLTC, whose responsibility is advocating in the community, and it brings to schools support from local community-based organizations and different structures to provide support to schools with different challenges that schools have. From the psychosocial support program, we are capacitating educators on mental health literacy so that they are able to early or quickly identify where a learner has a challenge. Of course, in some schools, it's not in all the schools. We place what we call learner support agents that they don't go into the classroom, but they assist to identify learners that may need support even outside of the classroom. And so we are putting different systems in place, Bridget, as a school, but also working with our partners. For instance, South African Anxiety and Depression Group, they do workshops in the schools with teachers, with learners themselves, and with parents. Lifeline does the same, and other organizations that work with schools. So we are trying our best, and we're going to be monitoring ourselves using data such as the one we're getting from health to see if our interventions are going to have an impact. We are currently finalizing a suicide prevention toolkit for schools, which we're going to use to engage the different stakeholders. So this is something that we are actively working on as well as the department.
All right. And we have to leave it there, Spongile, but I know that this year's theme for Teen Suicide Prevention Week is Your Feelings Matter, Let's Talk. Yes. And are you running programs, concentrated focus programs for this week, just quickly?
So our main program is just awareness, but our partners are doing different interventions and doing workshops and raising awareness at the schools. But Bridget, we're also finalizing what's going to be a mental health promotion virtual platform that we're going to launch very soon. That's going to be a tool that learners, parents, and officials can use to get quick linkage to mental health support, but also to get information that empowers them.
Awesome. We appreciate the time. That was Smungile Monareng, Director of the psychosocial support in the Department of Basic Education. 2:45. Let's take a quick pause.
Whether it is a CCMA referral, problems with a mechanic, or unfair blacklisting, Clientele legal plans are affordable, and you receive up to 670,000 rands worth of legal services per year. We cover civil, criminal, and labor-related matters. Our legal team will be your support 24 hours a day. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and a licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Mpeni Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers.
This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16.
Mamelodi Sundowns versus Mpeni Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. Ever since Uspilion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals, star white, Baba, and he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Spillion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
Coming to you as an individual, you were raised by a single parent, Phumzile Bhengu.
Yes, ma'am.
What was that like?
As much as she's the single mother that raised me, but my grandparents played an important role because she was going to work, feeding us, my mother. There was about 17 of us. Growing up, my mother had to work as early as she could because she already had 4 kids that she needed to take care of. And my grandparents were old, they were not working, so she had to go to work and bring bread. So we didn't really spend that much time with her because she was chiseling and working and making sure that she brings bread. It was awesome, and like any other black child story, that's how I was raised. Simple life.
Nkanyiso Bhengu.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
You think reheating leftovers would be quick, right? But somehow they're still cold. So back in they go and still cold. And by the third time, you just eat them anyway. But you know what's faster than reheating leftovers? Getting your car covered online with Santam. It only takes 2 minutes to switch, and all you have to do is visit santam.co.za. Santam, this is freedom.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
Alrighty, changing pace just a little bit now, and we are going to be having a conversation with Samantha Moyana, who's a debt counselor, and we're looking at joint finances versus separate accounts. What works best when debt is involved? Nearly 1 in 5 individuals have ended a relationship due to money troubles, and the reality is that money remains one of the biggest sources of tensions in any relationship. In fact, Samantha, when you speak to divorce attorneys, a lot of them will say, you know, at the end of the day, we can say the reason is that we are not getting along, but if we drill down to it, the reason will be money. They often say money is at the root of most divorces. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. It always doubles back to money for whatever reason. Like, I think all relationship and marital issues just come back to money. Okay, I'll be cheating here and there and other things, but it always doubles back to money. What are we not sort of at the beginning? Maybe let's start here. What are we not getting correct by way of those initial conversations when we enter into coupledom? When you start seeing that this relationship is long term and it's serious, however you define your commitment, there should be some kind of conversations that pertain to finances.
Yes, definitely. And that is one topic that most people avoid. And it is very important for people to address that, because money can be it's a very big concern in any relationship, be it with a partner or family. So it is very important when you enter into a relationship is to disclose your finances, disclose your debt obligations, because as you have mentioned, most divorce rates is due to finances and one not being transparent with the other.
Transparency, I think, is the issue, right? Especially perhaps if somebody is in a bit of a precarious situation, because you want to put your best foot forward in a relationship. You don't want your person knowing that you're drowning in debt or that you can't manage your finances.
Yes, so hidden spending or debt can compromise the couple's financial stability as well as security. It is very important for people to build trust and be consistent and transparent. That will actually avoid a lot of conflict. Yes, one may be ashamed, but it's best to be transparent than for you to be secretive. Because especially if you know that whatever that you're hiding might end up impacting your partner negatively.
I saw some data from Esperian that said that nearly a third of young adults aged 18 to 35 have discovered that their partner made significant financial purchases without telling them. Now that's alarming, because you can't go off and go buy a car and not say anything. And here we're talking in the context of people who are committed. We're not talking umjolo here. You can do whatever when you just jolaring. But when we have a commitment towards building a life together, there's certain expectations. And you really can't deploy the my money is my money approach to some degree.
Yes, it is important to, when managing finances together, it fosters open communication, helping couples discuss financial goals, expenses, and debt. So having that joint finances, it does promote transparency, making it easier to track expenses, income, and reducing the risk of infidelity. So you cannot make a decision to go purchase a car or maybe a house without consulting or involving your partner if you know that this relationship is long-term or you guys are married. It is very important for one, whatever big decision you're making, either jointly or you're doing it separately, is to inform your partner, because who knows, it may be taking from your affordability or it may reduce certain expenses that you have to cover in the house. So being transparent and open about that, you're making the next partner aware as to certain burdens might fall into their hands, or you have to cut down on certain things.
Let's talk about the positives and the negatives of joint finances. Now, I haven't been married in a minute of years. But I know that, when I was married and going towards the step of marriage, that year of engagement, when you're talking all the legalities, anti-nuptial contracts, and trying to figure out, the banking structure and things of that sort, joint accounts weren't in existence then. And actually I was fortunate. I had a banker that was very, very straightforward with me from the very beginning, the minute I got engaged. And we were looking to buy a home together, and she actually was quite opposed to it. She was like, because you guys are not married as yet, you are just engaged. Buying a home with somebody could be a very precarious thing. I mean, I forged on and we bought the home together, but she made her thoughts very, very clear, and her reservations around, without that marital contract, I would not advise you to buy a home with this person as yet, even though you're telling me you're going to be married in a year.
So it is very important when it comes to separate finances. Separate finances allow each partner to maintain control over their financial decisions and goals. So when one partner has debt, separate finances can prevent the other partner from being held responsible of that debt. You understand? So it also reduces stress and minimize conflict in a relationship. So it is important for certain things, rather have it separately if you know that you are not married yet, to protect yourself. Because who knows, if the other partner is affected or over indebted and you are married or this is joint, you will also be affected. So having separate finance, not because you do not trust your partner or you don't want to build maybe everything collectively, but it's to also protect each other, and minimizing a lot of conflict. But with that being said, or that being done, it is important to remain transparent and consulting with your partner. It is important to ask for advice, although this is your own purchase, but it will affect you both.
And yet, funny enough, we see people making this mistake, right? We saw there was a story that made it, and I mean, we all live on social media when we're not, watching the news and reading the newspapers. We live in social media for a bit of de-stress because it's nice to also peep into other people's lives. There was a story a few weeks ago. A young lady shared a thread where she'd been with somebody for many, many years, helped this person build what was essentially supposed to be their home, their marital home, and plowed all of her money, her pensions and everything into this household to build it, only for the person to jiggy turn around and marry someone else.
Yeah, that is very painful. And it's a reality that most people are living in, to be honest. So that's why when you have a home loan before getting married, rather keep it in your name. That's why before getting married, do research in types of marriages you can get yourself into in order to protect if you know that you do have assets. Because some people enter a marriage with nothing and then you leave with everything, you know. And that's really sometimes not fair, where else I have built all of this and the person is just taking it so easily away. So that is what most people find themselves into. I think it's because they need to really educate themselves when it comes to marriages, or speak to a financial advisor who will, like you have spoken to one, who guided you. This is the step you need to do. I don't advise you to take this jointly because you're not married as yet. That will hinder so many obstacles that you might face when things don't go well.
Yeah. And yet, I mean, ideally, you also want to, I get you with the transparency, but I guess part of building a relationship, and when you think you're building a life together, you also want to build that trust, right? You want to extend that trust. So is there, best practice advice for how maybe we can build that financial trust together, but still safeguarding each other, and particularly for women who tend to be more vulnerable in these situations?
It is definitely true. To avoid all of that, it's always best to enter into a relationship with someone that you know they also financially stable. I think you being the only sole breadwinner and maybe being with someone who's not working, that a lot of burden will fall into you. You find yourself taking a lot of debt for the relationship. You understand? So if maybe you are both employed, you can make financial decisions separately, but discuss it. Okay, this is going to affect me. I don't think I want to do this. It's fine. I do support you, but I don't want it to impact me, So it is important for people to be transparent, and it's a very difficult thing for people to do, but that's the only way you can manage and get through a lot of things is transparency. It wouldn't be nice when you find out your partner is deceased one day and then you find out that there's so many debts that's in that person's name and you literally left with nothing. So many people have been in such situations whereby my partner passed away, yes, with so many policies paying out, but so many debts start arising that you were not aware of. It's because of that relationship that people are not transparent. So if you feel that your partner is withholding certain things, how about you make separate financial decisions to protect yourself? Because even with me, I know should I enter or one day I get myself binded, I would have to protect things that I've built before getting into the marriage or the journey that I'll be taking into. Not because I'm being selfish, but those implications can be quite bad if they're also going to affect the next party.
Absolutely. And listen, and I think to some degree we also need to be comfortable with the concept of being a little selfish, especially for our own protections. Samantha Moyane, thank you so much for the advice. And Samantha is a debt counselor. It is fast approaching 2 o'clock. Ondelambana is standing by with the top of the hour news.
Thank you, Bridget. In the top stories, budget cuts creates a shortage in medicine in KZN and concerned rises of fighting in Gaza possibly resuming. For SFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good day. KwaZulu-Natal Health MEC Magugu Simelane has admitted that her department could not procure medicine in December and January due to budget cuts. However, Simelane denies that there are widespread medicine shortages at provincial state healthcare facilities. This comes after the Provincial Action SA leader Zwakele Mngwango supplied a list of facilities with medicine shortages to the Premier. Simelane says due to budget cuts, her department has resorted to taking turns in paying suppliers until the end of this month, which is also the end of the financial year.
So yes, we at some point you would find that there would be a challenge, and there was one or two companies that decided to withhold their medication because they had not been paid. But that has been sorted. Now we don't have a challenge of shortage of medication. About a week or so ago, we even went to our depot because we have a depot here to the department where we keep the medication. And we took a video that was showing communities that there is no problem.
Meanwhile, Simelane claims there are some staff members who fail to order medicine because they are disgruntled with the new ordering system.
If you want to order a particular medicine or particular tablets, you must be able to say, I am at 50% of medication. In a week's time, I will be at 25%. Therefore, I now need to order. Now, some people who are managing medication are not happy with that. Because in the past, you would just order whatever medication at whatever pace that you want. Now, we can't continue to work like that because government doesn't have money.
The case against the 6 men accused of the murder of Kaizer Chiefs defender Luke Fleurs has been transferred to the High Court in Johannesburg. The suspects are expected to appear on the 7th of next month. Fleurs was fatally shot in April last year during a hijacking at a petrol station in Florida, west of Johannesburg. Pelma Kubani reports.
While waiting for service at a petrol station, Fleurs was confronted by armed robbers who arrived in a German vehicle and they shot the soccer player in the upper body. The 6 accused were arrested in Slovotville, Soweto a few days later for their alleged involvement in the soccer star's murder. The accused are facing several charges, which include murder, robbery with aggravated circumstances, and possession of an unlicensed firearm, while one of the accused faces an extra charge of entering the country illegally. The families of the accused have expressed relief that the matter has now been moved to the High Court, stating that there is finally direction and progress in the case, as they believe those incarcerated have no hand in the murder of the Kaizer Chiefs player. The case will be heard at the High Court on the 7th of next month for pre-trial.
The Standing Committee on Public Accounts has expressed serious concerns over the Eskom skyrocketing electricity tariffs, with growing fears that the average South African can no longer afford the hikes. During a briefing on Eskom's financial statements for the 2023-2024 year, the Auditor General pointed to alarming financial mismanagement and inefficiencies at Eskom. Despite these concerns, Eskom has continued to approve electricity tariff increases for the next 3 years. The SCOPA chairperson, Songezo Zibi, says municipalities' debts to Eskom have contributed to these tariff increases.
The electricity tariffs came up in a discussion about the amount of money that Eskom is owed by municipalities, partly, because it all kind of comes together. By March of this year, municipalities will be owing Eskom close to 100 billion rand. Now, if Eskom has access to that revenue, it's very likely that what they ask for as revenue recovery from NERSA would be less. So that was one. The second, if the debts have built up over the decades, Eskom pays billions per month servicing that debt.
The Gauteng Health Department has admitted to the crisis facing some of the province's hospitals. It says Helen Joseph Hospital lacks intensive care unit beds. Steve Biko Academic Hospital does not have enough specialized nurses, surgeons, anesthetists, and the infrastructure has aged. This has left patients devastated. As ABC News reporter Horesani Sitole has more.
The backlog has left patients devastated and some in serious pain. Steve Biko Hospital in Pretoria, Chrisani Baragwanath, Charlotte Macege, and Helen Joseph Hospitals in Johannesburg are among the affected facilities. Some of the hospitals had to postpone elective surgeries, such as orthopedic surgeries, to April. Insufficient ICU beds and orthopedic implants are among other issues.
There's growing concern that fighting in Gaza could resume after the Israeli Security Cabinet took up U.S. President Donald Trump's demand for all the remaining hostages to be returned by midday on Saturday. Under the terms of the ceasefire agreement, 3 Israeli hostages were due to be released on Monday. The BBC's Yolanda Nell has the reports.
It remains unclear if the Prime Minister really intends to collapse the ceasefire deal if all the remaining hostages are not released by that deadline. Hamas has issued a statement renewing its commitment to the ceasefire and accusing Israel of jeopardizing it. It's understood that Arab countries are exerting pressure on the armed group to try to get the deal back on track. Egypt has said it plans to present a comprehensive vision for the reconstruction of Gaza that does not involve displacing the population, unlike the proposal put forward by President Trump.
Recapping the top story, KwaZulu-Natal Health MEC Nomagugu Simelane has admitted that her department could not procure medicine in December and January due to budget cuts. I am on Dilambana for SFM News headlines at 2:30.
In business, a rand saved is a rand earned. And almost 100,000 businesses trust OUTsurance.
We're in the security industry. Every month we save 1,488 rand with OUTsurance. Just having made the switch from our previous service provider to OUTsurance has allowed us to put another vehicle onto our fleet.
For your business insurance, contact OUTsurance to see how much your business could save. SMS quote to 43328 for immediate cover or visit outsurance.co.za today. A licensed insurer in FSP. T's and C's online.
Masandawana want to display their elite status with a graduation letter to the last 8. However, lower division team, Penny Home Defenders, are seeking to make history and join the league of giant killers.
This is the Nedbank Cup Ross 16.
Mamelodi Sundowns versus Penny Home Defenders on Sunday, 16 February at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and at 3 p.m. on SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game, the whispers in the morning, as I look in your
This February, the month of love and self-care, at SAFM we're celebrating with you, spreading love to all. Let's embrace kindness, connection, and self-care. And as always, SAFM will continue leading the conversations that move us through love, wellness, and everything in between. This month, let's love ourselves, love each other, and keep the conversation going. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
'cause I'm your lady, and you are my
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
akekho namnye ozakonwabisa, akekho namnye ozakuphuhlisa, angabikho nothi simbelela lithi akekho ozakuthulisa. I need a chill, yeah. Just a little loneliness. It's only for a moment, girl. It's just a little loneliness. It's only for a moment, girl. Inyembezi zonke waziweli phansi, mbulu ukuthi uvela phina. All the times you've seen ups and downs, you've always come through. So take a little time with my baby, who's full to lonely and just a little loneliness. Just a little only for a moment, girl. It's just a little loneliness. It's only for a moment, girl. You need a bit of time. You need a bit of. You need a bit of. You need a bit of time. You need a bit of. need a bit of time, 'cause you feel a little lonely. You need a bit of time, it's only for a moment. You need a bit of time, 'cause you feel a little lonely. You need a bit of time, it's only for a moment,
These are the weekend shows on SAFM. Music of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. The Jet Set Breakfast with Michelle Constant. Seasons with Khomotso KG Mweketsi. The soundtrack of your life with Ernest Pillay. Weekend Soundowner Classics with Kutlwano Masote. Spotlight with Zai Khan. The Weekend with John Kherika. Rhythm of Africa with Shayla Ndikumana. This is SAFM. The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
Coming to you as an individual, you were raised by a single parent, Phumzile.
Yes, ma'am.
What was that like?
As much as she's the single mother that raised me, but my grandparents played an important role because she was going to work, feeding us, my mother. There was about 17 of us. Growing up, my mother had to work as early as she could because she already had 4 kids that she needed to take care of. And my grandparents were old, they were not working, so she had to go to work and bring bread. So we didn't really spend that much time with her because she was chiseling and working and making sure that she brings bread. It was awesome, and like any other black child story, that's how I was raised. Simple life.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za. Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So our next guest is visiting us today, Brenda Khanyago. She decided that, you know what, I'm going to come through and I'm going to brave the schlurp and come to you guys and get my 10,000 steps in, and we appreciate it. Co-founder of Nubian Introductions, and they're redefining dating in South Africa with exclusive networking experiences. Now, we know that we've had this conversation on the occasion on a Wednesday when we delve into relationship issues, and we've spoken a little bit about, you know, some of the challenges perhaps and the negative perceptions that are out there when it comes to dating, and especially, like, you know, new ways of dating, new forms of dating. It's become very difficult for folks to, especially upwardly mobile folks, to find somebody and to put themselves in positions to find somebody. So this could be a conversation that's worth your while, and who knows, you might, you know, get some tips. How are you doing, Brenda?
Lovely. Thank you so much, Bridget, for having me in studio.
Thank you for coming through. We appreciate it. I mean, you come through today and it's freezing here. It's so cold in studio. But I hope we'll warm you up a little bit this afternoon. Firstly, let's get some background, some context. Nubian Introductions. Tell me a little bit about the company.
So Nubian Introductions was actually birthed out of my co-founder and I's challenges in the relationship or dating space. And after we swapped stories, we were like, this is something that is not unique to us. So we're actually coming up with a solution for ourselves. And we realized that because generally the upwardly mobile Nubian professional is so involved in their work, crushing goals, career goals, business goals, looking after family and kids, relationships are pretty much like the last thing that they prioritize. It's probably something that you think about just before you go to bed, probably around nearing Christmas time, because then your aunties are going to be asking
when you're lonely,
you know, type of thing. So we then decided that we're going to find a solve and create spaces and that are tasteful and exclusive, right?
Okay.
Where people can feel comfortable and be open or receptive to being their authentic and genuine selves in the potential of meeting a suitable partner.
So have you created like physical places or platform or more experiential events?
So our focus actually is in-person events.
Okay.
We only do those because we've realized that the online dating space is not really meeting people's expectations, right?
Yeah.
Hence, we are doing our inaugural event on the 22nd of February at the Jaguar Land Rover Experience.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we're calling it the Singles Soiree. Just, you know, create an ambience and an environment where people feel that they have the potential to meet like-minded.
Yeah. So before we even get to how it works, right? Because I want to know how it works. And by the way, the Jaguar Experience is just but a cat's throw away from my house. So
please do come and join us.
I just come. But let's talk about, you know, what have been some of the things that people are citing as challenges. Because yes, our schedules are busy and we sort of are focused on work and things of that. But it almost seems as though we get out, but getting out is not what it probably was when we were in our 20s. It's a different kind of being out.
It's a jungle, literally. So we actually conducted an insight session with the female audience late last year in December. And what we found, the common running theme is that people want to meet like-minded people or people that have the same interests or share the same goals, but there aren't spaces for them. So essentially the challenge is that once you are ready to dip your foot or, you know, put yourself out there in the dating space, you don't know where to start meeting someone, right? I'm like sort of bumping into a suitable partner at a garage can also be a bit tricky because we engrossed in our careers and we do our grocery shopping online. There isn't really physical spaces where you feel comfortable enough and what do they call it? Compelled to be authentic self or to let your guard down, essentially. Hence, we create the physical space for people to know that they're meeting somebody who is intentional about dating, right? And is being particular about the type of individual that they want to partner up with.
Yes. You know, we chuckle about meeting someone at the garage, but you know, I was saying to my listeners earlier on, because we need downtime. So when I'm not watching the news and reading papers and reading things, then I'm like everyone else and I'm on social media getting a good little ha-ha in. And a lot of people are advocating for Woolworths between the hours of 4 and 7. I've seen a lot of people talk about, listen, Woolworths between the hours of 4 and 7. And a lot of gentlemen are saying, ladies, can we see you at like the builders' warehouses on Saturday afternoons?
And I mean, that's a common default, right, as human beings, because you want something that's convenient.
Yeah.
And the reality is that social media, as wonderful technology as it is, it's because of its hyper-connectedness, it's actually making people somewhat feel lonely because you're so glued to your screen most of the time. And I think post-COVID, a lot of us have an appreciation for engaging with people in the physical realm because the online dating apps have proven that they are not really the place to go to if you're looking for a successful partnership.
Yeah, and also we're not there, right? Let's be honest. As South Africans, I was speaking to. She's a dating consultant, relationship expert in January, and I just think we're not there as South Africans. We're still very much skeptical, and there's a lot of stigma and maybe a lot of apprehension around online platforms because there's so many of them and they cater to so many needs. You know, young kids would say, if you want to hit it and quit it, there's a platform or two for you.
I think we know the most popular one for that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're looking for professionals, there's a platform for you. If you are an international premium dater, there's other platforms for you. But as South Africans, I just think we're a bit skeptical about it. We're
and conservative.
There we go.
Yeah,
Old
and very
school.
traditional. Which is the other reason why we decided to create spaces where people feel that they are meeting somebody who's like-minded in terms of their headspace.
Yeah. So, I mean, Brenda, why can't we meet people at a restaurant? You know, why like, why do we need sort of concentrated spaces? Because we go out in our age range. We go out to, you know, posh little restaurants, cool little hot spots on Saturday with the girls and the gays. And I'd like to feel like when you are in that space, in that environment, your hair's let down, your eyes are roaming around. Perhaps you're trying to assess, you know, because I certainly know when we go for just normal dinner, one of the things you ask is, you know, what kind of company is kept there?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's something that we were quite intentional about as well in terms of the audience that we are wanting to attract, is that from 35 up, the Nubian professional pretty much has their career on point. They're just lacking in the romance or love department. And most people, because relationships are such a sensitive thing, they won't even come out to their, you know, inner circle or family and friends, particularly Nubian males, right?
Yeah.
Because then it's like a reflection that, like, don't you know how to make? Like, how did you get to this point? So we are essentially wanting to create an environment that's attractive and is for people that feel that this is where they can give love a shot in a safe space.
Is like social media helping? Well, not social media even per se, but I guess social media, but also coupled with because entertainment is a big sort of pillar of how we are socialized. So now that's coupled with social media, it's coupled with what we consume on the television, what we read. You know, and I feel like relationships are getting such a bad rep in all the reality shows.
True.
There's not anything that speaks to what we're talking about, you know, because nobody trying to watch like Umjolo and Tontoni and, you know, where things are going wrong.
So interestingly enough, that you should mention that one of the things that came out of our insight session that we conducted last year was that although initially Nubian introductions was birthed out of us wanting to solve, you know, the romance aspect out of it. Again, because of social media, people are lonely because they're interacting with people on screen. And what we realize is that for the majority of the time, people just want friendships, right? Or to collaborate and meet somebody who's possibly pursuing the same career goals and they could partner up in business, which is what we've realized that is something that we actually can cater to, because we want to have the Nubian community feel like this is getting back to the core of what relationships are about.
Yes.
Because love comes in different forms, right?
Yeah.
We need our girlfriends. We can't do without them. We need business partners in order to thrive and be able to sustain ourselves financially. Yeah. And if love happens to come into the mix,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, if you know you come out to the Jaguar experience and you don't find quote unquote a romantic match, to your point, you might find somebody there that you really resonate with on a different level. You know, and that builds into something else that's mutually beneficial for the both of you guys.
Yes.
And then you extend your circle, because I think all of these sort of initiatives are around extending your circle so that you can widen the opportunity of you finding somebody.
You've hit the nail on the head. That's actually how I've been telling my girlfriends to approach the singles events, right? Because they just want to go for the men. And I'm like, no, just friendships. Build on that. You'll be surprised what comes out of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Also, by the way, whenever we talk about these conversations, suddenly my cameraman, who's always asleep, is now wide awake. Wide awake, but he was sleeping 10 seconds ago. You know, we talk about sort of women, and I think it's also important to understand the context. We were having this conversation on Sunday with my group of friends, you know, the girls and the gays, and we were saying that the truth is, in sort of this professional upper echelon working professionals that we talk about, the pool of men is so tiny. I think data a couple of years ago said that there's one man for every 7 women in South Africa.
Sounds about right.
And then you break it down to then the things that you want, you know, specifically. What do they call these men these days? High
net worth
women and high net worth women. Then the pool becomes even smaller when you start thinking about that, and it's like, Oh my goodness, we're in for a bleak situation.
Right, so we're dispelling that, right? Because essentially what we're saying that we want to create a community for Nubian professionals who will feel the urge or that it would be worth their while to engage in the spaces for more than just romance, like you said. Because yes, relationships form a large part, but the reality is that we've got careers and families and children to look after, right? So that makes up your Nubian community per se.
Yeah. So how often do the events happen? You're planning on having, because the inaugural one is happening
On
at
the
the
22nd
Jaguar.
of Feb.
On the 22nd, so just
February.
after Valentine's, so you're moving away from the pressure of Valentine's.
The hype. Yeah, because we wanna attract people who are intentional about meeting somebody that could be potentially a life partner.
Yeah, and then so we're there for the afternoon between 2 and 6 at the Jaguar Land Rover Experience. It's a nice space, and I think it also lends itself. It takes away the pressure.
Exactly.
Like, you know, because you're in a different environment. See, outdoors, we are doing things. We're experimenting.
Exactly.
And then is this something that you want to be doing? Like how often? Every quarter?
Probably every quarter. And also, what we've realized is that different age groups have different needs, right? And one of the things that has come out of the research that the insight sessions that we've conducted is that women from 40 plus have had their kids, you know, and they've achieved their career goals, and they want somebody who's matured enough to understand what their needs are and that they can potentially have something. So we're going to be segmenting the events from an age perspective, because it starts from age 35 up. But we want to make sure that we're getting the right mix for people to find meaning in attending the events.
What are men saying? Because, I mean, I know you spoil for choice. If you're one of 7, it means you have 7 women lining up, waiting. That, by the way, gentlemen, as a side note, does not justify you doing nonsensical things.
Correct. I support that.
Because the world is very small. So you're 1 out of 7 in South Africa, but I can just hop on a plane and go somewhere else.
Right.
And suddenly the numbers turn the other way around.
Ghana, Nigeria. We could also be spoiled for choice.
You know what I'm saying? Because they use that as an excuse. But what are they saying that they want from a dating experience?
Frankly speaking, the Nubian male has been a bit of a reluctant suspect. We even teased it with our social media. And back to what I initially mentioned, that there's a reluctance because I think to them it speaks to, or somehow has a sense of being emasculated, because it's almost like I really have gotten to a point where I can't find a woman for myself. So that's something that we're hoping we're going to change with the birth of Nubian Introductions.
It's interesting. So all of y'all who complain on Twitter every Sunday about, hey, woman this, hey, I just want a good woman, hey, you must come out and present yourself.
Thank you. Because I think we all experience the same challenges regardless of the gender.
Yeah.
Right? You want somebody that we can build a life with. And as much as you're successful in the corporate space, you want somebody to go home to eventually.
Absolutely. That's why I do not judge those, those professional women who take to TikTok and they cry in their cars about how lonely they are. In fact, I think that's brave to be able to say to total strangers that my career's on point, my education's on point, I'm self-sufficient, I'm on the right trajectory, but I just don't have somebody that I can go home and offload to, someone I can experience life with. And people judge that kind of vulnerability. And I'm like, what are you judging? Because in fact, this person is speaking for almost half of you.
If not 3/4.
So stop being judgy. For anyone that wants to go to the experience, where do they go to secure their bookings?
Quicket.com. It's on the 22nd of February from 2 to 6 at the Jaguar Land Rover Experience. We also have a website where they can submit a contact us form if they've got any questions. We're on all the social media platforms, and we pretty much ready to engage with anybody that's interested in attending the event.
Wonderful. Well, listen, wish you the very best of luck to this, and hopefully we get some really cool stories of people who met up, got together, had babies, and built entire lives. That was Brenda Khanyago, founder of Nubian Introductions, and of course Quicker.com is where you go if you want to be part of this experience happening on the 22nd of February. It's a daytime experience at the Jaguar Land Rover Experience in Lone Hill. So it's a Joburg-based thing, and I'm sure it promises to be fun. It's just gone 2:30. Andela standing by with your headlines.
Thank you, Bridget. In the news headlines, political parties in Parliament are finalising the debate on the State of the Nation address this afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply to the debate tomorrow. KwaZulu-Natal Health MEC Nomagugu Simelane has admitted that her department could not procure medicine in December and January due to budget cuts. And the United Nations estimates that up to 1,400 people were killed in last year's anti-government protests in Bangladesh, the majority of them by the country's security forces. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Specsavers now looks after your hearing as well as your vision with Specsavers Audiology. With 60 stores and counting, we are South Africa's largest audiology group. For a limited time only, buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. You heard right. Buy one rechargeable hearing aid and get 50% off the second. Find your nearest store at specsavers.co.za. Specsavers Audiology. Test your hearing and join the conversation. T's and C's apply.
Santam can cover your car in just 2 minutes. That's faster than scrolling through your streaming app, choosing a show, then deciding against it to rewatch another show because you didn't want to start without your partner and sit through the awkward "I started without you" chat. Get your car covered in just 2 minutes so you can live in the moment, not in the worry. Visit santam.co.za. Santam. This is freedom. Santam is an authorized FSP, a licensed non-life insurer and controlling company for its group companies.
Ever since Uspillion won 5,000 rand, 5 tower on Wheel of Fortune, he only wears white push-in sandals. Star white, Baba. And he owns 10 identical pairs. And before he did not even know the Queen's language. Now, Kalabo, wow. Chance. Let's watch Wheel of Fortune weekdays, Monday to Friday at 7:30 on S3 and see how one spin changed Billion's life and how it can change ours as well in just one day.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
SABC Education, in partnership with the Department of Health and Ilifa Labantwana, bring you episode 11 of the side-by-side drama season 4, focused on nutrition for children aged 6 to 12 months.
Say and say, side by side.
Singama Africa, Kenya, you Tina. Singama Africa, Kenya, you Tina. Singama Africa, Kenya, you Tina.
Good morning, Mama. I'm just putting cheese on my bread for school today.
Good morning, baby. And there's lettuce as well. Mr. Makwetu brought some.
That would be so lovely.
Imange mntanam, can we please talk about something important?
Sure, Mama. What's going on?
I've heard some rumors about you and Mr. Makwetu. What's happening between you two?
Oh, no, Ma. It's not true at all. People just like to talk, I swear it's not true.
Well, baby, people are talking about you, and I don't like that.
Let them talk, Ma. Mr. Makwetu is such an amazing teacher.
Okay. I want you to know you can talk to me about anything. Imange, anything at all.
I know, Mama, but really, there's nothing to talk about.
Okay, mntanam, I trust you. Just remember, I'm here for you always.
Okay, I must get ready for school. Bye.
Okay, sweetheart, bye.
take this badge off of me.
I'm still not sure about this.
Babala, you've made a brave decision. Sipakazi will love it here. And we, as her teachers, will take good care of her.
Kodwa Sisi, I just worry about her special needs, you know?
We have trained staff to help her with her FAS condition and will cater for her nutrition. Focus on a balanced meal.
Okay, that's good to hear. But what about interaction with the other kids?
She'll learn social skills, play with her peers, and develop emotionally. It's all part of our program.
Oh, I hope I'm doing the right thing, yes, sis.
You are. She'll be in good hands. And you can visit any time.
Okay. Spogazi, my baby. Bye-bye, Nana. Mama will be back this afternoon, yes?
Say goodbye.
Joyce, I'm worried about Amanda's eating habits.
Well, let's talk about it. Proper nutrition is very important at her age.
What should she be eating now? She's growing so fast.
Early childhood is a time of rapid growth and development for children, especially for brain development. And so getting the right nutrition during this time is very important, just so that we make sure she's not malnutritioned, which Amanda definitely isn't.
Okay, so which foods can I give her? Can she take takeaways?
Try not to give her takeaways. We have the highest rate of obesity in Africa.
What actually causes obesity, Joyce?
Obesity is caused by eating foods that are low in nutritional value and eating quantities of unhealthy foods that are high in sugar, fats, and highly processed carbohydrates. Some parents or caregivers of young children make poor food choices in feeding their children.
That's so tragic, Joyce.
It is, Kanya. So children need fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and dairy for a balanced development.
And proteins?
Yes, lean meats, beans, and eggs. They're important for her muscle growth and her brain development.
But Joyce, what about her picky eating? You know Amanda.
It is common at this age. Keep offering a wide range of healthy options. She'll become less picky over time.
That's a relief. I'll try different recipes, you know.
You're doing great, Kanya. Remember, variety and balance are key. And don't forget hydration. Water is important for a developing body. In fact, for any body.
I'll remember that too. My cousin has a 6-month-old baby. She also wanted to know about nutrition for her baby. She isn't too sure if she must continue breastfeeding or...
Well, starting at about 6 months, a baby needs other foods in addition to breast milk. Children need food to grow and to develop. So your cousin must continue breastfeeding her baby on demand both day and night.
Oh, I thought so.
Yes, breast milk continues to be the most important part of a baby's diet until they're at least 1, and it shouldn't be decreased when they start complementary foods. And please tell her to breastfeed first before giving her other foods.
I'll do that, Joyce.
And do you remember what you gave Amanda when she was that age? A few tablespoons of some porridge with milk for breakfast, some carrots for lunch, some sweet potato for supper, a few spoons of mashed banana, mashed avocado, and mashed cooked apple.
So that means 3 meals a day.
Yes, from 6 months, 3 meals a day. These must be nutritious and full of energy since the baby cannot eat large amounts.
Oh, thank you, Joyce. I will tell her.
Singama Africa, Kenya, you Tina. Singama Africa, Kenya, you Tina. Singama Africa, Kenya,
us again tomorrow as we sit down with an expert at 2:30 to further discuss nutrition for children aged 6 to 12 months right here on SAFM.
Side by side.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. The National Pulse, weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
In terms of the ANZ's response to what Donald Trump said, a lot of your thoughts around the response has been less to Trump, but more to AfriForum. Why so?
Because we know, and I'm sure you also know, that they have traveled to the U.S. in particular to speak about this very issue that Donald Trump is responding to. That's not being the first time that they had done so. We are responding to them in the main because they are South African. We should be able to work with each other in finding solutions to the South African problem.
Lindiwe Zulu, the ANC National Executive Committee member.
You're listening to the National Pulse on SAFM. Missed it? Find the podcast at safm.co.za.
Every person, no matter who you are, what music you're inclined to listen to, and what you do with your weekends. You need a weekend playlist. It's that musical mix of music that accompanies the lazy weekends, whether catching up with friends and family or just taking some time to reflect. Tune in to The Soundtrack of Your Life with me, Ernest Pillay, Saturdays and Sundays, 1 to 4 on SAFM.
You are listening to The Full Circle.
All right, in our final conversation this afternoon, we are catching up with Sister Corinne Davidson, who is an inflammatory bowel disease nurse specialist, and we're putting the spotlight on maternal anemia. So 2 out of 3 South African expectant moms are at risk. And World Anemia Day is taking place tomorrow, February the 13th. And in South Africa, we have a Pregnancy Awareness Week that happens this week. In fact, it started on the 10th and it's running until the 16th. And both of these days and week shine a spotlight on anemia. How are you doing this afternoon, Dr. Corinne?
Hi, I'm doing very well, and it's very lovely to be on with you.
Thank you so much for the time, Sister. Let's firstly just find out, when we're talking, anemia. I know a few people are familiar, but some people might not be. So give us some background.
Okay, so anemia is really a lower than normal red blood cell count, and it's a measurement of kind of your number of red blood cells in your bloodstream, but as well as of your heme receptors within each red blood cell. So how much oxygen carrying capacity you have per red blood cell. So, and those use iron to be built. So when your body makes your red blood cells, it needs good iron to make those, and you use iron to make those heme receptors in your red blood cells that are used to transport oxygen around your body.
Yeah. According to the World Health Organization, anemia affects around 40% of pregnant women globally. And there's a higher risk in developing regions such as our own here in South Africa. Why is that?
So, and it's interesting. In Africa, it's 57% of our pregnant moms are anemic. And I just bear in mind that is anemia, not just iron deficiency. So iron deficiency is almost double that. So, almost all of our mums have some form of iron deficiency during their pregnancy. And I think it's multifactorial. I think there is we have a higher burden of diseases in terms of malaria and TB and HIV, which all contribute towards that. Often our diet isn't as great. Most mums, it's like 40% of mums enter pregnancy without enough iron to start with. And so that comes from kind of even from teen years as they move into adulthood, where they just are depleted from early on. And I think just, in Africa we just have less resources often. And so it is a bigger problem.
Yeah. If part of sort of the risk factors to iron deficiency and even anemia to some degree speaks to also diet, right? I would figure that becomes, and I know we've had the conversations about the breadbasket in the country, and some of the issues that face our households, but diet would seem like it would be the low-hanging fruit that can sort of a conversation that can be held in terms of how do we tackle and curb iron deficiency.
So absolutely, and I think diet has an absolute role to play. It is incredibly difficult, however, to get your levels up with diet alone. So diet's really good for maintaining your levels. If you've got good iron levels and you take good iron-rich foods, like your meats and your chicken, fish, your dark green leafy vegetables, that kind of thing is great for maintaining your levels. But once you drop down, it's very difficult to get them back up to normal without some form of supplementation. So diet definitely has a role, but it's difficult to correct iron deficiency and anemia with diet alone.
I see. So then I would presume then some kind of medical intervention by way of medications and so need to be then coupled to the program.
100%. So we always suggest, particularly to pregnant mums, is to ask for iron levels to be checked. And we say not just the hemoglobin, but ask for your actual iron levels to be checked. And if those are low, then you need to go on to some supplementation. But we always suggest that you check the levels so that you're not taking iron if you don't need it. Okay. So you only want to be supplementing if you do need to supplement. And then what we say is 6 weeks on oral iron, and then you recheck again. Now, the issue sometimes comes in with pregnancy is if you get checked and you kind of 30 weeks or 33 weeks, then what do you do? And then that's often the time where we need to switch to something like intravenous iron, where we're very time pressured and we don't have time to wait for oral iron to work. So the kind of method is the earlier in your pregnancy you check and correct, the better it is. Because then you can really get away with oral iron therapy, and make sure you know how to take it so that you're getting the best benefit out of your oral iron.
Yeah. What are the sort of the pressing risks to pregnant moms and unborn babies if they have an iron deficiency or they fall in that 57% of anemic moms?
So you really are, for a mum, you're actually more at risk of poorer kind of maternal outcomes. So there's very little, what I always call wiggle room in terms of if you have a postpartum hemorrhage or you bleed quite a lot after your delivery and your hemoglobin is already low, you're more at risk of needing a blood transfusion. If you can't get, if you're in a place where you can't access blood, then you're at risk of a poor outcome. There's higher risk of infection, there's decreased milk production, increased postnatal depression is a real problem with moms who are iron deficient and anemic. And there's this terrible fatigue that a lot of moms get postpartum that actually is iron deficiency rather than just lack of sleep. And then when you look at your baby, there's increased risks of fetal death, of low birth weight, what we call intrauterine growth retardation. So within the growth that happens with your baby within your uterus is often less than it should be. High risk of preterm birth. And then that actually carries all the way through a child's life into adulthood. And they've followed children born to mums with iron deficiency all the way into adulthood and looked at what is different with those children compared to children who are born with mums who didn't have iron deficiency. And there's poorer cognitive processing ability, poorer math skills, higher degree of kind of aggression, anxiety, depression, social problems. So all of those play a part long term because iron is critical for your baby's brain development. And babies store the iron they need for the first 6 months of their life in utero. So if you're iron deficient, your baby is iron deficient, and often they're born iron deficient, and it can take them up to 7 years to catch up when they're born iron deficient. So it really is, it's critical to correct that while you're pregnant rather than after delivery.
Oh, okay. I mean, interesting fact there. I didn't know that at all. And obviously, this is a conversation that doesn't just pertain to expectant moms. Of course, because of it being Pregnancy Awareness Week, it is, largely part of the focus today. But it's not a conversation that is just solely exclusive to pregnant moms.
100% it's not. And what's incredible with anemia is that it covers every age group right up to the elderly. So we have our high risk groups. So those are obviously our pregnant mums, and what we kind of our teenagers, our girls who start menstruating and who are growing. They're at risk. Kind of people who are high performance sports people are at risk. Our mums who are kind of perimenopausal, or women who are perimenopausal who often have very heavy menstrual bleeding, and then our elderly are also at risk. And so it really is a kind of cross-generational, cross-age group, cross sort of lifespan disorder. But it can be treated, but it needs to be looked at before, obviously, it can be treated.
Let's talk a little bit, Sister Corinne, around the detection. And I mean, we've touched a bit on some of the preventative measures by way of diet and medical intervention, but let's touch a bit on that early detection. What are some of the signs that, generally we should be looking out for, and perhaps what are some of the signs that become more magnified if you are an expectant mom who's currently pregnant?
Okay. So when we look at physical symptoms, there's fatigue, and you often wake up tired. And being tired is not normal. Being tired is a symptom that something is not right. So fatigue, and then it's things like poor cognitive processing. So people often say, like, I feel like I'm underwater, I can't think properly, I can't connect the dots. Anxiety and depression increase. And we get what we call poor effort tolerance. So your ability to get to an end of a day without feeling exhausted. You climb stairs, you're exhausted. You can't do the kind of sport or exercise that you were doing. A lot of people experience hair loss. So they say, like, I brush my hair and there are clumps of hair that come out. That's very iron and it's kind of deficiency related. And then there's something that is interesting. Is called pica. The pica is a craving for non-food items like sand, like paper, those kind of, and ice. And a lot of the pregnancy cravings and cravings in non-pregnant people as well are actually iron deficiency and not just cravings. So when someone says, I'm eating bags of ice, that is almost kind of definitive of iron deficiency anemia. And then sleep is another huge thing that is impacted. So people struggle to fall asleep, their legs are restless. If they fall asleep, they wake up, they can't go back to sleep. So iron deficiency impacts that, and that's across everyone's kind of life, and not just expectant moms, but it's exacerbated often in pregnancy because your iron demand is so much higher. So you tend to lose, you kind of deplete your stores a lot more quickly. Because you're growing a baby and a placenta, and you have iron needs yourself as well.
And when you talk about pica, is it craving non-food substances like ice and sand and clay? I remember when I was a kid and my mom was pregnant with my baby sister, and we're 9 years apart, and she had a craving for, so we call it umqako in Zulu, which is like that white sand ball. Yes. And I'd be like, what? Why are you eating that? But she had a craving for that, and she had little baggies of it everywhere.
Yeah, and that is very, very iron deficiency anemia related. So we often say, people come in and it's like, I just want to eat sand. I'm eating sand all the time.
Yeah.
And we can almost guarantee that they have anemia when they're craving things, those non-food substances.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. So diet modifications become one of the treatments. And what kind of foods? You mentioned obviously the proteins that carry high iron, some of the more complex leaf greens that carry iron. Are there other sort of adjustments or perhaps eliminations that one should be taking out?
So I think it's really important to recognize that there's certain foods and medications that influence or impact your iron absorption through your gut.
Okay.
So if you have your high iron foods, so say you have eggs for breakfast and you've got some iron in your eggs, and then you go and you have a cup of tea or coffee, you're not going to absorb any iron from your food. Say you have a steak at night and you pour it with pepper sauce, the dairy in the pepper sauce will prevent the iron from being absorbed in your gut.
Oh.
So always say eat smart. So if you're going to eat iron-rich foods, eat smart with it. So nothing that impacts your iron absorption for an hour before or an hour after your iron. So if you're going to have a higher iron food, and most of those are kind of our lunch evening meals where we're having our meats and our leafy green veggies, don't have your dairies, don't have your coffee, that kind of thing. So don't have dinner and then have a cup of coffee afterwards because the caffeine interferes with your iron absorption. And then there's certain medications like antacids or PCIs that impact the iron absorption in your gut, so you don't absorb iron very well through your gut. And then sometimes it's genetic, so sometimes you just don't absorb iron that well through your gut. But if you're going to eat high iron-rich foods, then make sure you're getting the maximum benefit from those foods. And things like vitamin C help increase the absorption of iron-rich foods. So that's always a good thing. A glass of orange juice or an orange or anything like that does help as well.
Yeah. So, any conversation that involves diet, I think always sort of circles back to the one principle of diet: eat clean.
Yeah, eat clean. Yeah,
eat clean. Like it always just circles back to that. Thank you so much for the advice, Sister Karine, and of course for bringing awareness to this on World Anemia Day, which is tomorrow, and of course this week is South Africa's Pregnancy Awareness Week. So hopefully, if you are specifically a pregnant mom or you know a pregnant mom, you got something from this conversation. That's how we leave it today, and we leave it with obviously day 2 of those debates still happening in Cape Town, the SONA 2025 debate. All the MPs are still taking to the podium and discoursing around the various points that were presented by President Cyril Ramaphosa last week at the State of the Nation. And then tomorrow he will be taken to the podium to revert to everything that was commented on over the last 2 days, 3 days, if you consider that special sitting as well that happened before this, primarily dealt with our entanglement with everything that's happening in the DRC at the moment. Ashraf is coming through. I'm sure there's so much for you to talk about on this afternoon's show. And then we'll see you tomorrow. It's World Radio Day tomorrow. So we get to have a little bit of fun. Always exciting to observe World Radio Day. It also is the day that always gets me counting to be like, how many years have I been in radio now? If I'm not mistaken, this year is my 20th year in radio. I'm going to reconfirm, but this year should be my 20th year in radio, having started at YFM many, many years ago. So we'll see you tomorrow. And thank you so much for being a part of this afternoon's conversations. Inshallah, God willing, we get to do it again.
Thank you, Bridget. Top stories at 3. A decline in business confidence and budget cuts creates shortages in medicine in KZN. For SFM News, I am Mondelambana, and a very good afternoon. The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry Business Confidence Index edged down to 120 in January from December's 121. The decline in the index was mainly attributed to lower export volumes. Saki says stronger imports, vehicle sales and rising tourist numbers had a positive influence. The Chamber's Richard Downing maintains that the overall business confidence remained stable after strong improvement in the second half of 2024.
We're using 14 indices to compile the Composite Business Confidence Index. And there's only actually one of them, merchandise import volumes, that declined a bit in January, and that decline caused actually that one index point dip in January. But the dip wasn't serious as such because a lot of the other positive moves in the economy and in the business kept the index up above the 120 level, which is a very good level if you compare it to what happened in the past and where we were. It seems like there's still some convincing that the government of national unity will attend to economics and get economic growth going.
Political parties in Parliament are finalising the debate on the State of the Nation address this afternoon. President Cyril Ramaphosa will reply to the debate tomorrow. Yesterday, the majority of political parties expressed deep concern on the position taken by the U.S. administration to cut funding to South Africa, as well as the deployment of the SANDF troops in the Democratic Republic of Congo.